I'm recording as well in the cloud. So then we have the two recordings, and with that being said, I think I can start the introductions, and I hope more people will join in the meantime. But anyway, so as I was saying, welcome everyone to our third session of the webinars for the Monumental Challenges project. It's very nice to have you all here. The previous webinars focus more on like teachers and teaching contested histories, but for this one, we also wanted to bring the teacher trainers perspective. So very happy to have with us three amazing speakers that will share what they've been doing on these fields. And so first we'll hear from Christoph and Benny, who have been involved in the Confronting Memories project. And after all, we'll hear from Marco, who has been testing some of the activities and the lessons that we developed for this project with his students that are at university level. And I think with that being said, I'll give the floor to Christoph and Benny so you can share your presentation. And also, if anyone doesn't want to, has questions, you can ask them in the chat, and then I'll make sure to read them after all at the end for the Q&A. Or if there's any issues logistically, like you have issues with connection or anything, you can write to me or Lorianne, who is EuroClio, and then we'll help you out. And that being said, Christoph and Benny, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paula. Okay, let me get the presentation up. Could you all let me know if it's... Wait a second. There.
Yes,
Okay, it should be working.
it works.
Yeah. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Christoph Sproul, as Paula has mentioned, and I'm the project manager responsible for Confronting Memories from Civil Society Forum, which is a network of multiple non-governmental organizations based throughout wider Europe. With this as our background, we have the agenda for today. So first, we will go through the Confronting Memories program, where I will give some information about this and what our goals are, our activities. Then Benny will discuss the development of lesson materials and a case study of the lesson materials that we use, which you can always find online as well through our website, confrontingmemories.org. It's all available there for you to find and use in your own contexts. And then afterwards, I'll go into the details of our activities regarding training of trainers or training of teachers, actually, because we work then primarily with teachers in the countries of Armenia, Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia, and then additional participants from Russia, so Russians in exile, but the main target countries being Armenia, Moldova, and Georgia. So I'll give some information then on how we approach this. First, what's important to understand about Confronting Memories. So the Confronting Memories program is based on three core tenets. First, it's the utilization of multi-perspectivity in history education as a primary method of engaging youth and students in general. Sorry, I have to, with these kinds of presentations, there's always too many things on the screen at the same time. I can't see my own slides. Then we have also the other two tenets, which are the provision of quality value-based education for youth, and then also the fostering of dialogue and cooperation between teachers and educators. And this is related to the main topics that we discuss, which is related, of course, to World War II. It is somehow the foundation for the program, as well as current and recent conflicts. So to take a step back, then we would begin with where everything started for Confronting Memories, which is the Different Wars exhibition that was a presentation of World War II education approaches or textbooks from a particular set of countries across Europe and in Russia. And through this exhibition, it was possible to explore the different narratives that these countries take in presenting World War II. And this exhibition traveled throughout the countries, presenting those key differences and similarities. And you can find the Different Wars textbook available. We are always available for any kind of orders. So, for example, if you would like to receive the Different Wars textbook or the Confronting Memories pedagogical guides, you can send an email to us, but you can find those materials online. So this was in 2016, the exhibition. Afterwards, in 2020, from 2020 to 2021, online lesson materials were developed by international groups of educators on the same topic of World War II, and they utilized primary sources, innovative exercises, and multimedia components to help teach the same concepts of the multi-perspective approach towards World War II. And these materials are found online, as I've said. You can see them in 5 different languages, as they were used in all the different participating countries, and have a variety of age targets or target ages. After that, we worked on the first pedagogical guide, which focuses then on utilizing World War II memorial sites for history education. As anyone knows, that there's a very large amounts of World War II related memorial sites throughout Europe. And even these sites alone have so much to bring to history education in general. They are a physical portal to history and tangible for students. And they allow us to also focus on this attitude-based education because there's an emotional component to the way that they're designed. And in general, they're a great way to incorporate multi-perspectivity. You can see the various perspectives relevant for these World War II memorials and then use them in the classroom. And the guide is based on 8 learning activities, which are related to different World War II memorials. And there's an essay on the memorial landscape in Europe in general, as well as pedagogical recommendations for these sites. This is available online as well, as I've said. And the major difference in recent history for Confronting Memories is that we have decided to focus more on recent and ongoing conflicts, especially since the war in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and the concepts or the topics related to post-Soviet history are becoming more salient. So we focus now on the new pedagogical guide in conflicts in the post-Soviet space, specifically related to Armenia, Georgia, and Moldova. And this is why we work in these countries now for the training of trainers, especially because these materials were developed as all of the materials by international groups of educators. And in this particular pedagogical guide, we try to focus on a transition away from the military political education approach. So going from the national narrative, as is based in our foundational concept in the Different Wars exhibition, moving from the national narrative towards a social approach and implementing social sources from a variety of sources to allow students a better understanding of the different sides of each conflict. The guide itself is comprised of 3 background and context essays on recent or ongoing crises in Armenia, Georgia, and Moldova, as said, and there are also the comprehensive learning activities. Besides that, we have some multimedia products developed. There's the explanatory video of the Alport scale, which is a scale used to understand discrimination in general and the scale of the stages of it, as well as a documentary film designed or produced in collaboration with our Ukrainian Polish partners on War is Not Over. It's titled War is Not Over, and it's discussing history education as a tool against conflict and war. Now I will hand over to my colleague Benny to discuss the development of lesson materials for Confronting Memories, as well as the example that we've decided to use today.
Yes, thank you very much, Christoph. First of all, I'm going to go deeper into the Pedagogical Guide number 1, developed during the years 2022 to 2023. And in this work, I had the pleasure of being the pedagogical lead. So there are some overall aims for the whole program of Confronting Memories. And for this 2-year project, you can see this quote that highlights the main sort of statement and indirectly also the aims of this part of the project. Addressing uncomfortable episodes of history through our educational practices inside and outside the classroom can create pathways to facilitate critical and open discussions of our national histories with the goal of promoting such core values as human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. All right, next please. So in this part of the program, we decided to develop 8 learning activities, primarily on World War II memorials. And it then was the case that there was one teacher from Poland, one from Moldova, and one from Russia, that each developed 2 learning activities. And apart from the 3 teachers, also a museum curator from Germany took part in this as well. You might have seen that in one of the earlier projects, some learning activities were also developed. But in this case, we try to engage more in what you would call a professional development way to support the teachers. We'll come back to that in a moment. So we decided to focus on 3 possible learning activities for memorials. One, a classroom-based learning activity, and as you can see, the next one, classroom plus visit-based, and the third one, a purely visit-based learning activity, because we thought that these are the 3 situations or environments that most teachers will find themselves in when trying to develop materials and activities in this field of history education. Thank you. Next one. So, as Christoph mentioned, multi-perspectivity is a very important part of the whole program of Confronting Memories. And in this case, we selected 2 definitions of multi-perspectivity. The first one, various present-day views on or interpretations of a specific historical event or period. And the other one, different perspectives over time on a specific historical event or period, meaning introducing the dynamics of a past, present, future vision in history education. Thank you. So the teachers that worked then for a period of time, as you'll see, had something in common. First of all, a learning activity with a focus on a memorial or a memory or memorial was very new territory for all of them. And our focus on learner-centered activities was not something that they were used to in their teaching practice in their countries. And the third and perhaps most challenging one was to try to develop a learning activity with a focus on the values that you saw stated above: human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. So this was very exciting for all of us to go into this. And as you'll follow our process in a moment, you'll see where we then ended up. Thank you. So these educators came from various historical backgrounds, also of history education, and various practices, various exam systems, etc. So these were the 4 sort of key elements that made up the common ground when we worked with this. And I think these are some agreements that are very important when you engage in teacher training of educators from a variety of countries. So I think it's just a good thing to have a look at them. First of all, the respect for mutual professionality, a respect for specific national conditions. And then we engaged in the process, a recognition and acceptance of each step in order to create ownership of the outcome. So it was very important for the whole group that this was something that was developed in agreement with what the educators found acceptable and positive and useful. And useful also in the sense, in the fourth round, that the final version of what we would arrive at would be applicable both nationally and internationally. Thank you. So what happened? You can follow the training process here. As a group, they were handed out a model lesson for inspiration. And then each teacher selected a number of national memorials. And then in a dialogue with the trainer, they then selected 2 for the further process. And then over a period of typically 2 or 3 months, even 4 or 5, each teacher sent draft versions to the trainer and received feedback. So that also meant that if you look at it in this way, that the final version was the result of typically 8 to 10 draft versions over these months. And this was again something that was very important for all of us, that we shouldn't hurry. We shouldn't put pressure on anybody. It had to sort of be embedded and developed from step to step. Thank you. And then it was, of course, also important to try to test the learning activities or the versions that were ready at that specific time. So after 1-2 months and so, we were ready to test or to trial the versions. And this happened at a common working session, a summer school in Łódź in Poland. And present, apart from the trainers, were a number of history educators. So I think we had a forum of about 30 people. Then the teachers got the possibility to make each one presentation as it was standing at the point and getting very fine quality feedback from the audience. And then we used this feedback to finalize the learning activities over the next 1 or 2 months, according to each of the educators' possibilities. And this, again, was something that we all found was very, very useful, because one thing is to have some trainers working with you, but this was a very important step that they had these colleague-to-colleague testing and the ability to talk to the group as the summer school developed day by day. So a very useful thing I find to, if it's possible to do so in other training environments. Thank you. So what we then in the end developed of learning activities covered these categories of World War II memorial sites. There are, as you can find in the materials, official memorials of military campaigns, either relics of the time or designed and erected after the campaigns. Thank you. And we have official memorials of victims. Again, relics of the time or designed and erected after the events. Museums dedicated to historical events, and unofficial memorials / private initiatives. Thank you. So let us have a closer look at one of these 8 learning activities. And in this case, This is the Serpeni Bridgehead Memorial, developed by one of our colleagues from Moldova. I selected this learning activity for our case because probably it represents the most challenging category of the three above: a classroom plus visit-based learning activity. So the next slides, we've already started on the first one, will show how the main pedagogical parts of the LA, of the learning activity, were set up in the final version of the learning activity that you can all find. So in the sort of pre-part, this was announced like this: students will also identify several types of monuments and explain their significance, discovering how soldiers from Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine lost their lives there. That is at the Serpeni Bridgehead. And then finally, they will reflect on the importance of historical monuments, on the collective memory of a people and nation. And the key question selected runs like this: why might a World War II monument be constructed 60 to 17 years after the war? Thank you. So these are the main elements of the actual learning activity. Stage 1, learning about the actual military operation. Stage 2, because the students would be working in groups, comparison of answers. And then stage 3, students would read the description and study the photos of the sites that you can see in the appendix and try to answer the following questions. I'll show you a photo of the actual memorial in a moment. Why do you think the complex was only opened in 2004? Why do you think people from different countries financially supported this project? And why was Serpeni considered a strategic bridgehead by the Soviet army? And stage 4, we're still in the classroom. The class would make preparations for the visit. Okay, thanks. Here you see a photo of the actual memorial site, which is quite big. And the next one, thank you. The students would then have at the memorial site quite a long time to explore and observe the memorial, and they would have tasks that would be distributed among them, and then coming back and waiting or for the bus or being ready to go back, they would have what is called here stage 6, 15 minutes reflection part. And these are the questions that were selected for this reflection part. What objectives did I set for this visit? How did experiencing the memorial site compare to studying it in class? How did I feel during the visit? What goals were pursued by the decision makers when building this monument? Is this memorial site relevant to me as a young citizen of Moldova? And finally, are monuments an important part of history today? Thank you. So here you saw the key question of one of the 8 learning activities, and you saw where we ended up in the reflection part. I just wanted to give you an overview of some of the other key questions of the other learning activities. Very quickly, does the state have the right to order wide-ranging physical and human sacrifices? Who should make such decisions? The authorities or the people themselves? A key question to one of the other learning activities. The next, what can the Museum Berlin Karlshorst teach us about the presentation of history in the past, present, and future? The third one, how did genocide and crimes against humanity manifest themselves during World War II? And how can we prevent them in the future? How can the history of the Katyn massacre be used to illustrate the way monuments are used to try and hide war crimes? And finally, how and why are historical events hushed up? Who is responsible? And is it possible to avoid this in the future? Thank you. So what I wanted to say here at the end would be that if you compare the key questions that I just read aloud to you to the project aims, I hope you'll see a large degree of correspondence, because I think it is important for me to conclude for our part from the experiences we had during these 2 years, that monuments, memorials are excellent sources, we think, in teaching also attitude and value-based history education, perhaps even more in many ways than traditional written sources. So we can only suggest that this is something you take up if you don't do it already, and we hope you can find our materials inspiring for your work. And you're always welcome to contact us on this. Thank you. Back to Christoph.
Thank you, Benny. Okay, so we'll be going into the last section here and describing the current project and how we approach to the training of trainers for our methodology and the materials that have been developed. So I think quickly to just summarize, we have all these materials that we've developed up until the second pedagogical guide on post-Soviet space conflict. And now we're in the process of engaging teachers in those 3 target countries, Armenia, Moldova, and Georgia, and with additional participants from Ukraine and Russia. So these people we invited, there were 36, I think, individuals invited to our summer school in Armenia, where we were presenting the Confronting Memories approach, methodology, materials. And these participants were teachers coming from those 3 target countries. So we have local coordinators in each of those countries that were responsible for the open call. And our team was then responsible for participants from Russia and Ukraine. And we have 3 Ukrainian teachers that were present, as well as 2 Russian academics, I would rather refer to them. And it was an interesting environment to have all of these people together. Of course, there's much difficulty in inviting Russians and Ukrainians to events together, but in this particular instance, it was clear that our targets were collective, and that we worked towards this overall goal that is useful for all of us, regardless of our background, and that we definitely approach these topics with sensitivity, but. That is the point of the post-Soviet conflict pedagogical guide, that we understand that there are conflicts and that these are going to possibly become even more relevant, especially in the 3 countries that are participating. As we've noticed, also the Georgian election is relevant for our participants, and these topics are just always going to be important for us. So it's the entire goal to discuss this in the framework of our project. So. The importance of our approach, especially in relation to other similar projects, is that we are directly involving educators in developing the materials. As Benny has mentioned, we have this approach that brings them together over various levels, various drafting and collaborative stages to create these materials that are then co-created, you can say, and this helps us to establish both an ownership of the materials developed, as well as the an efficiency and accuracy with the materials that is relevant for the context that we use them in. In addition, the project is working on a direct evaluation of the materials on teacher and student levels. So we're involving an external evaluator for the teachers who are participating in our training of trainers. So we have the ambassadors that participated in our summer school from these countries, and they go on to their countries and give training of trainers to further disseminate our materials and approach. And this is going to be evaluated, as well as the usage of the materials in the classroom. Each of these ambassadors, so we have 5 from each country, as well as 3 Ukrainians that are participating voluntarily. They then test these materials in classrooms in what we call pilot sessions to identify the usefulness of the materials, as well as further needs and what other important things we might need to keep in mind in the usage of such materials. So the goal of the summer school in general was to then present those materials and develop the methodology with the participants using our expert trainers that have been pedagogical consultants in the development of our materials, as well as in our in the implementation of our workshops in the past to develop the materials, as well as to select the ambassadors. So we had 7 to 8 individuals from each country, of which 5 would be selected. So we had several stages to select the trainers. The first stage was, of course, the open call for each of the countries. And then we allowed the local coordinators to select individuals who met the profile that's relevant. And then at the summer school, we discussed with the coordinators how to select the 5 that would then work as our ambassadors. So the space was then in accordance with the third of our major goals for Confronting Memories was also provided so that we could have dialogue on these topics. And there was a lot of important dialogue related to conflict. I remember specifically the Armenian participants had much to say about how they teach the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict in their own history classrooms, as well as Ukrainian participants, of course, discussing how they teach history in ongoing conflict, which is more relevant for them, of course, in the particular circumstance that we are in today. So it was a good experience for us to discuss how the teachers already approach these things, and then how these materials and approach can complement what they're already doing. We go in with the perspective that our teachers are already experts in their classrooms. They know what is relevant for them, and we just provide a space to improve on that and help them in whatever way we can. And the multi-perspective approach was definitely valued by them. Of those that did not already know about it, and in addition, also the materials that were developed, they're very happy to receive them. So this also was allowing us the chance to discuss how the training of trainers and pilot session components would be implemented over the next months. The training of trainers has already begun and been completed in Armenia and Moldova. Almost all of the ambassadors have given their training of trainers. This is a picture of one of our Moldovan ambassadors giving her training of trainers. And we are now also receiving word that the Georgian cohort, we have had 2 of the training of trainers workshops given already, with 3 left to be done. So we're almost completed with the training of trainers component. This is, again, of course, the chance for us to disseminate Confronting Memories materials and methodology. It also capacitates the teachers in the methodology in their own, with their examples that they can bring. So the way that certain lesson materials are structured, they can be then adjusted for certain contexts. And there's, of course, new ways that they can approach their own already existing materials with this methodology. So just applying multiple sources or having multi-perspective approaches and bringing in this this complementary approach. And then, of course, there's the chance for us to evaluate the training of trainers, how they are going within the framework of our project, as well as then the usefulness of the materials for teachers, what they think about the materials, how they think that they can be used, whether they're useful or efficient, and so on. These have been done already until December 2024. We expect to have all the training of trainers done, and then the pilot sessions within the classrooms. We've already had a couple of examples done in the Ukrainian cohort. We have received already some feedback from students directly on what they think about Confronting Memories materials in the classroom. But as of now, we've had at least 180 participants from Armenia, Moldova, and Ukraine in our training of trainers workshops. Within the evaluation results, we have very positive results so far. The vast majority of individuals who are participating in these workshops say that they find the approach sufficient and comprehensible according to what they've learned from the training of trainers provided by our ambassadors, that they think that they feel equipped with the materials after the workshops, after the TOT, and then as well that they find the materials useful and effective. But that the biggest comments are that they could use always more chances to practice the materials and methodology. So this is something, of course, that we imagined would be the case. It's very difficult for them to have the chance to take all of the lessons that our ambassadors learned over the 3-day summer school and then synthesize it within one day or within just a couple of hours. So there's maybe a chance or a need for follow-up. But the idea is that the multi-perspective approach, once you hear about it, once you understand it in its foundation, it can be begun in its application. So the key takeaways from our experiences so far, that we have budget as a very limiting factor on the size of the TOT that can be implemented. We already received word that it would be beneficial to provide more of a budget to teachers, so that they can invite more people, because it's a workshop to be implemented like any other. In addition, something I haven't listed here, but is important to say, is that, of course, the selection of teachers is a very crucial component of such a project, and that it's very important for us to work within circles of teachers that are good candidates for this. And we're in the process of understanding what is the ideal profile of a teacher who would be interested in such a program, and then feel like they belong to the activities, and then through that ownership of the outcome, be able to contribute to the project and towards the improvement of quality education in history classrooms. So this is something we're understanding more and more as we go. In addition, it's good that the ambassadors work in teams. It's nice to be able to break the monotony of just having one person presenting, as well as having people with particular expertise. So the Ukrainian training of trainers, for example, had all 3 trainers, or all ambassadors, come together. Of course, the security situation makes it difficult for them to have in-person meetings. So they've done their training of trainers online, and they have one ambassador who's been working with the Confronting Memories project or program since years now, EACEA. She was an expert and gave a very clear explanation of the project, the program itself. And then the other 2 ambassadors, one was very aware of how to use them in a classroom and how to adjust the materials for that purpose. And then another gave a presentation on additional tools that are useful for teachers using other tools that we learned during the summer school that they were made aware of. And one last thing to say, that the materials used for ongoing and recent conflicts. So we have a lot of materials, as Benny's mentioned too, that we have made available. Of course, many related to World War II and those and related issues or related topics. For the Armenian cohort, we received feedback that these materials are extremely useful for them, because there are no existing materials in the national schools textbooks for Nagorno-Karabakh related history lessons. So for those teachers using these materials, they found it incredibly beneficial to have something like what we offer. And it was created in partnership with our Armenian partners. So this is the whole point, that it's excellent for us to be able to complement the national history education with such materials. And then, so what we have next in plan for Confronting Memories, we are hoping to finalize the training of trainers component until the beginning of next year. We have a midterm evaluation workshop planned for Georgia from sometime in February or March, where we will bring all the ambassadors together, talk about the training of trainers and classroom sessions that they've done thus far, discuss what works, what didn't, have the evaluator give a presentation on the most important lessons that we've understood so far in the evaluation, and then provide space for additional practice of the methodology and to visit an excursion or make an excursion of a World War II related memorial in Tbilisi as well. So within the framework of the project, this is our schedule. And we would then hope to see the beginning of the classroom sessions being done. This is planned by most of our ambassadors in 2025. And then we will see further evaluation. There's of the program, we have focus group interviews being planned by our external evaluator with people who have worked with the program both in the past and currently. And finally, after all of the activities are done, we have a reflection workshop in Moldova where the majority of our ambassadors will come, and we will reflect on the key takeaways of the year. Well, a year and a half, actually, that we've worked together. So that's briefly what we've done in the 4 years of Confronting Memories, and I hope that it was helpful in understanding what we're working towards and what's available on our website and what we've done so far. As I've said, you can always find everything related to the program on Confronting Memories website, and you can follow us on these social media as well, so to find out any other updates we might have. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. That's very interesting. I received some questions on the chat, but I'll first give the floor to Marco, and I'll add you to Spotlight. And I'll let Marco, Marco has been involved in these Monumental Challenges projects that we are doing, and that is the framework of this webinar. So he will share more what we have been doing, and also he does some of the materials that we developed with his students, and he'll be sharing those experiences. So Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I'll share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to present you some activities that have been developed through our Monumental Challenges project, and I promised to everybody that I'm going to implement and try to pilot them with my students. So I had the opportunity since the mid of October until last week to test it with my students. I had to choose which one lesson I shall present to them and then try to engage them into the activities. There were several options. A few of them were local and some of them were international. So I choose to present local because it needs less time to introduce them to the topic, since they know local history better than general history, world history. So the one I choose was about Despot Stefan monuments in Serbia. And it's the first topic we choose from our structure of Monumental Challenges project. And it's about national heroes. And it actually addresses how certain values develop and change over time. So I focused on several historical thinking concepts, first on historical significance, then continuity and change, which is actually the main point of this exercise. Primary sources were also used, not just medieval sources, since we are talking about medieval person, medieval ruler, but also contemporary sources like newspapers and portals which are addressing for instance, opening of the ceremonies, political engagement of local parties and so on in opening and memorials, commemorative speeches and so on. And therefore we used also multiple perspectives. I had to, as a preparatory activity, to translate everything from English, since this lesson plan is done and written in English. I translated into Serbian, and I used it on the first lecture I had with these students in the 4th year. So basic information. I see that we both, Benny, Christoph, and myself, we use the same pattern on PowerPoint, but that's just took a chance for that, but it's really the good one. Sorry. Well, I have to explain to you who are these students. They are not MA students. They have never been involved in any initial teacher training program. They are starting this in the teacher training from this year, so they started in October. Actually, they are students of the 4th year, which means they already done their courses in global and local history from the ancient history until the contemporary. And they don't have any kind of knowledge about anything in teaching process as teachers, only as the students, since they went to school previously. So they are actually rookies in this field, and they don't know anything about didactics. They don't know about concepts. They don't know about pedagogy. So it was a bit challenging for me, because I usually would have done this in the second semester, but I didn't have time. I had to pilot it now. So we spent actually on the first hour lesson. I didn't even know their names. I took them out of the room outdoors, and then we went to visit monuments. As a preparatory, I just had this ice-breaking activity, which is here. Actually, I just put this slide just to show you how it looks as a working draft material. And I had a key question, and I had the ice-breaking activity, which was actually several questions in general, not specifically to these monuments that they were going to see. So it went very well, because they responded to these questions mostly like students, not like future teachers or students that are going to be trained as teachers. So I had a really very successful discussion about all these things, and it went in several directions, but mostly they are aware how contemporary historical culture and awareness shapes historical remembrance as well, and what are we going to commemorate in which way. So actually, since there's something in between students and teachers, so to say, they have more knowledge than regular students in high school, since this lesson is planned to be conducted in the last grade, where students have 18 and 19 years. So it was, my students are 22 at this point. So they're very close to the targeted age of students. So these ice-breaking questions were kind of introductory to the going outside. And I just distributed to them this kind of chart. It's actually table with the questions and worksheet. They took it with themselves, and they had it in digital and in written form, and as a checklist for observing monuments that they were going to see. So first monument was in the central it's very close to the faculty. For those who were in Belgrade, it's in Kalemegdan Park, where the fortress is. It's on the spot where this ruler had a court in the Middle Ages, and where his capital of the state was at the time, and it's now capital of Serbia as well. And we had here, I gave them some instructions that they were free to go, to take pictures, to comment by themselves. And later we went to another one, monument dedicated to the same person, very close to the faculty as well, but on the other side. It's in the street, actually on the small square, in the very, where traffic is very jammed, but it's not actually a place where you should expect a monument to be. So, but it has some political subtext, and they were about to discover everything. So this was this first time they went out and with clear directions that I was actually following what we have done in the preparation for the monumental challenges, and they did it really very, very well. They were open-minded. They were asking me, of course, some questions to clarify some things, to guide them, but it went very well. Next thing is 1 week after the on-site visit, we went to the classroom back, and they started, I have to create some kind of, let's say, environment where they were not just giving their impressions on these two monuments they have visited, but they had to compare with other monuments in the country dedicated to the same person. So with key questions above. So each group, I divided them into 4 groups. Each group had to dedicate themselves to analyze one specific monument. And then they were opening a space for research in terms of, in historical sense, there is nothing much to do about the position in historical narrative and research about this person. But in modern context and in context of monuments, how they reflect modern trends and ideas of our political manipulation, there are many things to discover. So I led them to research by themselves. So they even corrected me in one thing, that one monument was actually erected 3 years before I thought. So I put this correction in my Paula, you could see that on Drive. So and there were very interesting texts from different political parties about why these monuments are done at that time, how they look, and so on. So it was very successful from point of view to give them a kind of boost for further research and contextualization of monuments in a way that we want to do that in the Monumental Challenges project. So okay, so I gave them a key question as the starting point, but they had freedom to discover by themselves how they are going to address these things. But they also use this working sheet that they used for observation, and they use this working sheet for other monuments as well, which are in other cities they're not feasible, and they cannot be observed in real time and space. So they had to rely on photographs. And last week, it was last Friday, they gave presentations about these monuments and about their findings and the results. And it was kind of simulation of school student activities. I didn't insist on what they have so far learned from it in terms of pedagogical or didactic experience. I just wanted to see how they think and to create them space that they will use in their future teaching if they become history teachers. So they were addressing main features from the table and actually working sheet and a quick key question. We didn't have enough time for a self-assessment and evaluation of didactic activities, but they still wait for me my feedback regarding these pedagogical aspects that they have developed. Actually, I'm addressing these concepts of historical thinking that I mentioned at the beginning, but I went through each of their chart that they actually created with them, with their observations, with their questions, with their answers to the questions, and they really did it marvelous. So actually, I had a really small group of students this year. It's about 15 of them, but all of them they were very inspired, and they got to the point where they were not relying so much on medieval history, but the presence of medievalism today in current Serbia, in a social setting, and in national homogenization, which is actually something that is following populist approach to the past and political abuse of history. So actually, my conclusion is that they were highly motivated and they were competitive among themselves. They wanted to present their results as a better one, so more deep thought, more profound in concluding, and so on. They expanded their ability for the research because they were not at the beginning aware of political culture and social contextualization. That were actually steps into the process of learning. When they were learning, that they were opening these fields to approach to the monuments from this political side and cultural, and actually they were not thinking much about how the style of the monument, an artistic style, addresses some political messages or some kind of populist let's say, also messages. So, they were also trying to create some kind of connections, like interaction between society and the ways of memorialization and commemoration of certain periods, persons, events. And they were using historical sources of contemporary historical sources to actually try to put them into this political and social context. So they were also very aware of manipulation, and I didn't expect that much, let's say, intuition among them to follow this way to create this kind of reflection on political situation which is going on currently in Serbia. So they were very aware of difficulties, of challenges, but also they're not stepping out of something that is a methodological path in ways that they will follow some kind of tabloid news, or they were checking out every information that they were using. As I said, they even corrected me in a year. So this is what I have done so far. I still want to hear their reflection about everything, and for that purpose, I'll use some kind of questionnaire, short next lesson, and then you'll get a whole package of my exercise. But I think that Monumental Challenges has a bright future in front of us. So thank you for that.
Thank you to three of you for such interesting presentations. I do have questions by my own, but I also know there's questions in the chat. So I'll first ask the questions in the chat. I think Caitlin has been kicked out of her premonition in the message that she sent. But Caitlin White, she's a professor at Ireland, and she was saying that she's very interested in the project. I'll just read what she said. My own background is in monuments in Ireland in the 1920s and 1930s. I like to ask Confronting Memories. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges you face in developing lessons and activities for different national curricula? And then she said that her laptop is at 5%. So she said, I hope it doesn't die and kick her out. Unfortunately, it did. But as it will be recorded, we can also share your answer with her. So the question is, can you talk a little bit more the challenges you face in developing lessons and activities for different national curricula? So,
well, I suppose, thank you, that I try to comment on that. I'd say that it didn't really present so many challenges as I had expected, because as I presented also in the slides, when you try to get an agreement on the process and the basics of that process, the environment that you want to work inside, you share some common ground also via some of our online sessions. So it was actually very little that we touched upon sort of the curricular backgrounds of each country and how that might, in many cases, limit the possibilities of these teachers to develop something. Of course, it was there now and again, but I'd say it didn't hinder us as much, if anything at all, compared to what I have done in the past in other projects. So it worked well because we had these common goals set up very clearly, the common aims. And apart from that, if you want to contact me further on this, then you feel free to do so. EuroClio will have my mail address. So I'd like to develop this further with you. Thank you.
thank you. There was another question I had in the chat, and I also invite the rest of the people that are here to ask any question if they have. You can put it in the chat or you can ask yourself. But Mary-Louise, which unfortunately also left us, but I can also share the reply with her, is asking, well, she had a question about the trainers, and she was asking if the ambassadors and participants received an honorarium, of it was all pro bono, but I think you already mentioned it during your presentation a little bit. And the other question was, how much interest was there in the call and in participating in the trainings? Like, did you receive a lot of applications, or yeah, how was the interest of the people?
I can first mention something related to the honorarium. So yeah, as I mentioned in the presentation, we have a small payment for the teachers that is meant for them to be able to purchase coffee and travel reimbursement and so on for the participants of their TOT. It's a small amount, and I think that in the future, in any other kind of capacity development program, it would be nice for us to work with a bigger budget for them, because I think if it's limiting our ability to reach more people, it's something that we can probably receive a huge profit on, so to say, profit in terms of outreach and making sure more people can participate. So I think that it's a small amount, but it could be bigger, I would say. And the second question related to the interest in the call. So the interest for the three main countries that are participating, I can't speak to, because this was undertaken by the local coordinators. So unfortunately, they would know more how many people actually applied. We received some applications that were meant for those countries, but we had to redirect them because it was the way that the program was structured for them to have ownership of the selection process. I can only speak about the Ukrainian and Russian participants that were invited. They, of course, are not actually targeted in the primary activities of the program, though. So we have it's a bit kind of unique, I think, the experience with those two countries. And I would say we didn't receive so many applications we received almost no applications from Russia, which is understandable, I think. And from Ukraine, we are unable to provide honorarium for these ambassadors. So it was really for them to just participate in the summer school, and we received several applications, but ultimately we only have 3 ambassadors from Ukraine. So we received double that in applications. But for the 3 countries, I think there were likely lots of applications, I would say. I would imagine that there was a fair amount of interest within those from those countries. And I think particularly in the Moldovan and Armenian cohorts, I would say there was probably a large interest.
Thank you. Are there any questions, or maybe you might also have questions to each other? If not, I have questions. So it was interesting because, Christoph, you mentioned that you were in the process of understanding more and more how it goes regarding like the profile of teachers and the selection of the teachers. So as this is something that we are also dealing with, I wanted to ask if you could share a little bit more your insights of what are the profiles of teachers and participants of these events. And my other question is also for you, and because you mentioned that some of the trainings happen online, so I was also wondering if you could explain like the difference between the online and offline, if you saw different reactions, or yeah, what was the feedback for those?
Sure. So the first question was related to the profiles of the teacher that we've selected. So I can't speak definitively on what is the ideal candidate profile yet. We're still going to work through this, I think, in the evaluation, which is we hope to conclude that in by our reflection workshop. But I would say that the ambassadors that I have noticed that are the most involved in our work so far are those that are already involved in typical or in other capacity building programs for teachers, that they already are interested in doing these kinds of events, that they, for example, I see them through social networks doing other certification processes and doing other projects unrelated to our own, and oftentimes through other Ministry of Foreign Affairs funded projects in their particular contexts. And I think it's most likely the case that our teachers that are the best in terms of their ability to contribute to our project in reaching out to teachers and teaching the methodology and so on, and implementing this in the classroom are those that are typically just interested in training themselves and improving their own approach towards that. So I think it's really just teachers that are interested in improving their own work and making a big difference there. We have definitely, I mean, I noticed that the ones that are most successful in their work are the ones that are reaching out to me directly, the ones that are working on certification. So another thing is also that when we work through the certification process of becoming a teacher of confronting memories, so you receive a certificate when you participate in one of our TOT, and we have good feedback from the Moldovan cohort because they actually receive a certificate that is adjusted towards the needs of teachers so that they can use this certificate to present in their own professional certification, or accreditation process, that they've done this several hours of work with confronting memories materials, that they elaborated their own project or elaborated their own lesson using this material, and that helps them for their own external certification for other purposes in the Moldovan context. So that's also something that would be really helpful, I think, when we think about what's an ideal candidate, someone that we can reach out to, that we also provide something to them within their own career that is helpful for them. So I think I would speak to that. And the second question, what was it again? Sorry.
The difference that you experience with the online and offline
Yes.
training.
So it's difficult because we have no baseline for proper comparison. Unfortunately, we can't say like one is better than the other. We have, for the Ukrainians, no real possibility for them to do an in-person meeting. This is not possible, but we first of all notice that the training is very, very much related to the interest of the teacher and their interest in making the training go well. So regardless of it being an online or in-person training, it's really the most important thing to have a good ambassador teaching it. And the set of ambassadors teaching it is even better, I think. So we will have an online training TOT done by the Georgian cohort. As I know, for now, there's going to be one Moldovan one to be done online as well in the future, and then 2 in the Georgian, among Georgian ambassadors. So we will be able to make a better recommendation according to that, I think, in the future. But I would say that it's good. It's still possible for us to do it online, but the biggest benefit of our TOT is for the teachers to work with the materials in groups and to practice the lesson materials. And this is something that is much more difficult to do in an online context. Unless you're very skilled with breakout sessions and so on, I would imagine that it's doing much better in presence, in person. So yeah, as that's a very important part of the TOT, to work with the materials in groups and so on. I think that it's like many training approaches nowadays, you know that it works better in person. Unfortunately, we would love for everything to be completely replaced by online implementation, but it just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. So I think that's all I can say to that, at least for now. But with the the finalization of our evaluation, we will know more.
I look forward to it then.
Mhm.
Yeah, are there any other questions, or as I said, maybe you have questions to each other? I don't see anything coming in the chat, nor any hands being raised. So then I look forward to knowing more about this feedback that you have. And Marco, of course, I look forward to what your students say and what they share about how they experience it. So that being said, thank you, the 3 of you, for today's webinar. Thank you for everyone in attendance. And as I said, this has been recorded and it will be made available on our YouTube channel. So thank you a lot for everyone, and I'm wishing you a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.